Hello there. Welcome to our next awesome conversation here at the Parent Twin Connection. For those of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet, I'm Clarissa Constantine. I'm founder of the Parent Twin Connection. We are where parents go when they don't know where to go. And one of the ways that we live up to that moniker, to that tagline, is by bringing in professionals who have an array of experiences and an array of backgrounds to help you learn things that you probably don't even know that you don't know when it comes to having teens and tweens in your life. So today, I'm excited to be joined by Kyle Jetsel, who is the parent of 6. And were they all boys or 5 boys and 1 girl, I think, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And he said he started his parenting life off with 2 neurotypical or typical kiddos. And then his 3rd kiddo came along, as he told me, came out with his head on. Oh, no, wait. The first 2 came out with their hair on fire as just active, feral boys, as you put it. But your 3rd kiddo came along and didn't fall into the neurotypical category. You said he deals with severe autism.
That's correct. Yeah.
And over time, you and your late wife have developed a cadre of tools that you use to support him. And then you've recognized since then that a lot of what you've learned to parent him in the nonverbal, significantly affected by autism world, a lot of that stuff works with families who have typical kids, even if they are the hair on fire feral variety.
That's correct. Absolutely right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you, Kyle, for being with me today. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I'm excited to talk to you, Clarissa.
So let's start. I'm sure every parent has had a moment of being like, yeah, my kid is strong-willed. I'm sure my mother would have classified me as such. But how do you, like, when you say the secrets to parenting strong-willed children, what do you mean by strong-willed in this realm?
So I'll ask the parents themselves, if too often you feel tired or burnt out while you're trying to parent your kids, if you have difficulty not feeling overwhelmed by your kids at times, if you want to parent them in a spirit of love, but you find yourself snapping into the other state, right? The frustration, the anger, the discouragement, all those things we can fall into. Uh, I would say you probably are raising we'll call them spirited or strong-willed or challenging. And I think that's probably the best way to describe it is how you feel as a parent, because we could describe those kids in a lot of different ways. And it's really a myriad from kids that just have oppositional defiance disorder and won't do anything you ask them to do, all the way to kids that might be passive aggressive and agree with you and agree to do everything and just don't do it and just aggravate the heck out of you. So there's a real wide array of, what we'll call, spirited kids, right? Strong-willed kids. But I think the key is, how are you feeling as a parent? If you're tired or burnt out all too often, if you have difficulty, like you're feeling overwhelmed, like this is too much, I can't take it anymore, parenting, or you don't want to be frustrated and angry and discouraged as you parent as often as you are currently.
Got it. And that's not to say that this, Hallmark version of my kids never bug me or never irritate me necessarily exists, but that maybe we can bring some of that level of frustration down a bit and make it more manageable.
That's absolutely what we're trying to do here. And I really do believe, I've come across a lot of parents to say, well, my kid is not that difficult. Right. And they'll pass it off, or they'll say, they're spirited, but all kids are spirited. Right. And I agree with that. Right. But I also think that it's never too early to address some of those things.
Sure. Got it.
As a parent, not necessarily in your child, but as a parent, what can I do as a parent to parent this child in a way that doesn't break their spirit, that teaches them what they're doing and what they're feeling can grow into something really powerful? We don't want to break them. Right. We just want to help them aim. We want to help them aim that energy and that power in the right direction.
Awesome. Okay. So I know one of the things that you like to start with in your conversations with clients or in conversations like this, includes some of the biggest mistakes that families fall into. And I want to interject here. One of the reasons that we started Parent Twin Connection, like my husband and I haven't actually chosen to have children. And people always say to us, like, how do you have a family, or how do you have a business focused on families and teenagers? Why would you do that when you don't have any of your own? And our response is always, because we were the teen in those challenging situations. And we recognize in our respective experiences that our parents didn't have the tools. Maybe the tools didn't even exist, or certainly now there's a lot more access to tools and knowledge than there was however many decades ago. Right.
Right. Right.
And so when I talk, like, our logo is specifically shades of gray, because what I observe over the years is that parents tend to either mimic very closely the way that they were raised, or they go to 100% the opposite end. And they often, and I think this is human nature, we're in partnerships that are similar to what we observed growing up.
Sure.
We forget that there are shades of gray in there, and I don't mean that like the 50 shades like weird movie thing, but like there's relationships are not black and white.
You're absolutely right. There's a spectrum to relationships. I'm I say this commonly to people, and sometimes misconstrued, but the only variable in life really is human interaction, right?
Correct.
Your car, if you take care of it, it's going to start. You may have a flat tire, but you can get it fixed. Your car's not going to be in a bad mood. Your car is not going to refuse to start because it's angry at you, right?
Right.
Your car is not going to say, I'm not going to start today simply because I don't like the way you talked to me yesterday, right?
Hmm.
This is where humans are so dynamic and intricate, is that working with one human, you can figure them out. Well, maybe, maybe not, but all of us are
Right.
unique. All of us are different, and we have choices we can each make,
Right.
which makes that dynamic of human interaction tremendously challenging and difficult at times.
Right. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see parents make, either when they're trying to parent similarly to the way they were raised, or they go to the exact opposite? Where do they go off the healthy path, or the productive path, shall we call it?
So I think one of the biggest mistakes, and I think we all have made this early on, is when we first have kids, we think I'm going to be the greatest parent ever. We like to think that, right? Because we like to think if our parents raised us one way and we didn't like it, like you said, we go the opposite direction. Or if they did a
Hmm.
good job, or we think they did a good job, we just model them, right?
Hmm.
And so we expect if we're good parents, our kids are going to be compliant and good kids. We think it should kind of flow, right? The biggest mistake that I think parents make is parenting is going to be hard. To be surprised when you have to go through hard with your kids is the biggest mistake I think parents make. Here's the deal, though. It's going to be a good hard or a bad hard. Okay. If you don't accept that you're going to have to face some challenges with your kids, you're going to do what
Hmm.
I call default into lazy parenting. And you're going to say, oh man, I wish they would just act right. And you're going to sit there and not address those things, right? And then it can grow out of control very quickly. Or you go the
Hmm.
opposite end and you try to suppress them, right? You say, I'm the parent, you're the kid, you're going to do what I say as long as you live in my home. And that can
Hmm.
fail miserably as well, right?
Hmm.
So it's going to be, you're either going to fight and argue and have difficulties with these kids, and you're never going to figure it out. And you're going to feel like, I just can't wait till they move out, or maybe they'll grow out of it. That's going to be hard, right?
Hmm.
The other hard is you say, you know what? I'm the parent. I got to figure out how to help direct this child, how to guide them, how to help them develop their strengths. And I need to be conscious of those things as I parent. And I need to create strategies and tools that help me to help
Hmm.
them achieve
Hmm.
their absolute full potential, right?
Sure.
Sitting back and parenting by default, nobody wins.
Right.
Being frustrated and angry hard, you're going to be exhausted and tired and discouraged. If you
Right.
are thoughtful in your approach, you can go through this and be happy and joyful and watch them excel and learn and grow and turn into wonderful human beings. And so the biggest
Sure.
mistake is it's going to be hard. If you're just going to sit
Uh-huh.
back and do nothing, you're going to fail.
Right.
Okay? But
Well,
you,
and I can also say, as the kid who had the parent who is like in that space, like you said, as long as you live in my house, you're going to follow my rules. And I don't know whether my mom felt that she couldn't wait until I moved out, but I certainly felt like I couldn't wait to move out. I moved 1,500 miles away and could not go home. And I was fine with it,
And it's
and
interesting.
that was
Yeah,
hard.
when you parent with fear and when you parent with fear and with guilt, and when you parent with this overriding iron fist, kids feel controlled. And when
Hmm.
kids feel controlled, they can't wait to escape,
Yep.
right? When you parent
Hmm.
with kindness and patience and love and thoughtfulness, kids feel empowered and they
Hmm.
can't wait to excel and become their very best selves. And they learn to really uh, reciprocate,
Right.
right? But
Right.
there's going to be challenges along the way. We're going to have they don't all start like that. It doesn't happen naturally.
Right. All right. So if we're in that space and we do have this crazy level of stress, we're overwhelmed, we're exhausted, we don't want it to be like this anymore. What are some things that we can do to help lower our stress? And not only our stress, but like when we lower our stress, one of the things I always say to folks is like, we're the only ones that we can control. We can influence others. But what I've heard from many folks who support parents is like, as the adults, when we can manage to regulate ourselves, we stop the feedback loop of the crazy or the anxious or the engaged or the angry or whatever. So what are some things that we can do to help lower our stress and in turn lower the stress with or for our kiddos?
So I'm going to share with you a strategy we named AppWhack, and how the duck that sells insurance, AppWhack. Okay,
Yep.
just think of that, but it's APWEC,
Okay.
AppWhack. Okay, this will make it easy to remember. And this is a strategy my wife and I developed. And this was for us to win every challenge. Okay, now
Yep.
winning a challenge with your kid doesn't mean they comply and do exactly what you say exactly then. It means we stay in control of ourselves and we maintain a level of parenting, right? And so the APWAC, the A stands for assume. Assume your child will challenge you. I'm so shocked when parents act as if their child should never challenge them or should just do what they say completely and totally without any question. Are you nuts? That's not how these kids are designed. That's not how we're
Mhm.
designed. We don't do that in
Mhm.
our lives. We don't walk
Mhm.
around just taking orders and doing what people say. So assume there will be challenges. When you're surprised by it, you can tend to get frustrated or angry or discouraged. Don't be surprised anymore. It's going to happen. Okay. P in APWAC is prepare yourself. This is really important. Prepare yourself physically. Put yourself in a state of power, right? I'm the parent. I'm going to stay a parent. I'm not going to let my frustration overwhelm me or my discouragement and fall apart and turn into a 5-year-old where we're arguing with our kids or negotiating. That's not what parents do. Parents are parents, right? So prepare yourself physically, stand up, put yourself in a power state, and mentally. And when I say mentally, you have to ask yourself, how can I do this in a spirit of love? Right? Sometimes my kids are screaming at me, and it's easy to get my ego involved and want to scream back. But if I say, you can't scream at your child in a spirit of love, right? How can I do this in a spirit of love? How can I approach this? So prepare yourself mentally and physically to, to,
Mhm.
to handle this challenge in a spirit of love. The
Mhm.
W in APWAC is win. And you don't win by your kid saying you're right, parent, or your kid complying, or your kid never doing it again. You win by staying kind, patient, and loving through the process. Now,
Mhm.
this is kind of hard. You're going to have kids that are going to threaten you. They're going to scream at you. They're going to say, I hate you. They may ball up their fist at you, right? They may say things that they're trying to tip you into a state of not parenting. I'll kill myself, right? These, I hate you. These are things that can trigger us as parents into getting angry or frustrated or discouraged. But we have to resist those things because we need to stay in a calm, loving way, right? And that's how you win kindness and patience and love through the challenge. The E in
Mhm.
APLEX stands for energy and endure. Okay. One of
Mhm.
my favorite things when I was growing up, I did a little boxing, and they taught you when you box, sometimes you throw a lot of punches and your arms get really tired. You get punched out, right?
Mhm.
And the tendency is to drop your hands. And when you drop your hands, the other guy starts to beat you up. So they teach you whenever you feel your energy going down, whenever you feel your arms get heavy, lift them. This is a trigger to lift them, right? You always have enough energy to You always have that little spare bit of energy. You might not think
Got
you
it.
do. You might think you're exhausted, but you can have energy, and endure is sometimes that challenge, that disagreement, or that, how do I get my child to do these things? That may last 5 minutes or an hour.
Hmm.
You have to endure that hour sometimes and stay in a state, because your child's learning from you. If they think, oh, if I can stay at mom or dad for 20 minutes, that's when they snap. And then I become the adult and they become the kid, and we both start screaming and we're both on level ground.
Hmm.
Right. So
Hmm.
energy and endure is the E. And then C is my favorite, and it stands for celebrate. Okay. Whenever one of my kids challenges me and I assume they'll challenge me, I prepare myself mentally and physically. I win through kindness and patience and love. I endure and I have energy. I want to make sure when I leave that moment, I celebrate. That's the C, right? I need to feel the energy that comes from knowing I was a good parent in that situation. My kid was spit screaming at me, and I was still an adult. And I said, hey, please don't scream at me. That's really not going to get you what you want. It's not going to get us
Hmm.
anywhere. Right. And what that
Hmm.
does is you celebrate those victories. And what it does is it energizes you. Right. Now, what happens is, let's say your child and you argue for 20 minutes. It's exhausting. It's
Hmm.
exhausting. Their stress is escalated. Your stress is escalated. If you follow this APWAC, assume, prepare, win, energy, and endure, and celebrate, you're not exhausted. When you love them through the trial, through the difficulty, you feel energized. You know you're a good parent. They may not know in that moment, but who cares? You do, right? You do, and you're capable of giving them consequences that are real and matter, and you can be consistent. But when you
Hmm.
lose yourself as a parent, when you lose yourself in that, in the anger or frustration or discouragement or just exhaustion, you lose, right? And your kid learns, oh, guess what? If I say to mom, I hate you, she falls apart and I get control, right? And I've seen this
Hmm.
in kids as young as 5 years old. Well, I hate
Yep.
you, mom. Mom falls apart. Then the 5-year-old is arguing with another 5-year-old as his mom, right? And then nobody wins, and the stress goes out the roof, and mom thinks, I can't take this anymore. My
I've got
5-year-old,
another 13 years of this, 15 years of this. How am I ever going to survive? I've had parents say that to me.
but if a 5-year-old says, I hate you, and you say, okay, I'm going to assume he's going to say that because he's trying to test me to see what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to assume, I'm going to prepare. I'm going to say, you know what? I really wish you wouldn't say that because I love you. Even when you act like this, like a little dirty little scoundrel, I still love you. And by the way, screaming at me that is not really going to get you anywhere. What gets you, what you want, is kindness. You treat me kindly, I treat you kindly. We can so and what happens is you energize yourself. You can lower stress for them and for you, and you'll have more energy. It's a beautiful thing when you follow that APWAC process,
Right.
APWEC. The next time you find yourself getting discouraged or frustrated, just think APWAC, right? Follow
Think
those
of the duck.
steps.
Yep.
Follow those steps and make sure you celebrate at the end.
That's awesome.
We need that as parents. We need to say, yes, I did it, right?
Yeah.
Yes. We need to feel
Hmm.
the energy that comes with that. Because guess what? 5 minutes from now, you're going to face the same thing, probably. Maybe another
And maybe not
kid.
with the same kid, but with a sibling at least.
There you have it. There you have it. Yeah. Hopefully that's helpful, Clarissa. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So, one of the things that you talked about is, obviously every kid is different. Every kid has to be parented differently. So, how do you create your own, what you call secret formula for success with your kids? So, the APWAC is pretty broadly applicable, right?
Right.
So, how do we personalize that, or how do we take that into our own space? And I have to imagine this works with the occasional spat with your partner or irritation with a colleague or a boss or something like that as well. So, for folks like me, I'm taking heart with my partnership.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the key to this is to APWIC is a general idea, but your child is going to bring to you different challenges. Maybe they don't like to do homework. One of my sons, my more severe son, is oppositional defiance disorder, right?
Okay.
Uh, and he'll say no to everything if I make a request. I actually don't make requests from him. I ask him questions, right? I lead him down a path. But the way to do that really is whenever you feel, let's say you apply APWAC, but you really don't want to fight with your child over homework every day for the rest of his life. And your child doesn't like homework and it's a fight every day, right? The key is what we call a cost formula. And the cost stands for COST, is cost.
Mm-hmm.
And what my wife and I learned to do is whenever we get frustrated or discouraged or think, man, this is going to go on forever, is to fill out this cost formula and identify the challenge, which is the C. The C in the cost formula is, what is the challenge? And you write it out on this piece of paper under the C, and you say, here's what it's causing. Here's how I'm frustrated. Here's what it's going to end up looking like long term. And you want to pre-think all the pain that this is going to cause you, because what it does is it makes you take action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just sitting back and saying, I can't wait till the kid doesn't have to do homework anymore. That's not really addressing it, right?
No.
So write out your challenge, okay? The O is for objective. What is my long-term objective in creating a strategy to address this homework issue? Now, the reason I say long-term objective is because we don't want it to be a short-term objective, right? Because if you say short-term objective is just, I don't want to fight him anymore, then you let him get away with it, and then it's a problem down the road, right? You want to. There's 3 pillars of success when it comes to long-term objectives. So one is, I'm gonna always do what's best for my child, even when it's hard, right? That's one pillar. I'm always going to do what's best for my family, even if it's hard. And the third pillar is, I'm always going to do it in a spirit of love, especially when it's hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when things start to blow up, I need to be as loving as possible. So the O is objective. What do I want to get out of this long term, right? Maybe my son will never enjoy homework, but how do we make it fun or bearable? Maybe that's my objective, is to make it fun or bearable, or keep it within a time frame, right? Now, the S in cost is strategy. What are you going to name your strategy? And I don't usually name them until after I create in the T, which is tactics, right? So challenge, objective, strategy, tactics. And the tactics are, you know what? When he comes home, we're going to sit down at the table and I'm going to sit with him. And my tactics are going to be, I'm going to come up with 2 or 3 jokes, and whatever your tactics are, right? You come up with your own. You know your child better than I do. You know, maybe you can tell a few jokes and get the spirit light. You can say, hey, we only have 20 minutes. We have to sit here. Maybe you get to chew on chips, or, have a juice box or whatever it is. But you want to identify the steps you're going to take that lead you
Mm-hmm.
to that long-term objective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can name it the homework strategy. Maybe that's a good name for it. I don't know. But you can do this with any challenge you face with your kids, whether it's they don't want to make up their bed, or they don't want to, they're disrespectful to mom or disrespectful to dad, or, anything from that all the way to skipping school to, fighting at school, cursing in the house. You can create a strategy based on the cost formula. What's the challenge, the long-term objective, strategy, and tactics. Now, what this helps you do is whenever, you get a call from school and they skip school, you don't have to get overly emotional about it and frustrated, angry, discouraged. You just pull out that worksheet and you say, okay, what are my tactics? What am I going to do first, second, third, and fourth? And you follow
Sure.
that process. And this gives your child consistency. They
Right.
know and you're not emotional. You're not overworked about it. You take the emotion out of it. You say, hey, son, you skipped school again. Here's what we're going to do. Right? Here's the consequences. Now, your kids they're going to balk at it. I understand that, but you got to be consistent. And once they start to see consistency, they learn, right? Here's what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to challenge that. But
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. That's why this cost strategy works, because we can go back and make adjustments to our tactics.
Well, and one of the things that I like about this as a concept is, going back to AppWec, assuming that things are going to be challenging, right? I've been a test prep coach for 25 years. So I've worked with kids on SAT, ACT, and we know certain behaviors of the test. And so we can prep the kids accordingly, or the students accordingly. This is the same exact concept, but we have to bring in that expectation that it's going to be a challenge. So it's almost like we can do some forward thinking and be like, okay, I see this other family is dealing with X, Y, or Z. What would I do in that situation? And at least doing some of that pre-thinking about it gives us an idea of how we would respond and what the challenge would be, what that is in our family based on our family values, what's the long-term objective, because like I thought, when you were talking about like cursing in the home, like some families don't care because they curse openly. So a kid cursing in their home isn't going to be a challenge for them. But
Right.
in another family, it would be.
Sure.
We see that in an array of situations. Kids having sex before marriage would be a big thing in some families, not a big thing in others. Kids smoking pot is a big thing in some, or having alcohol at dinner or whatever. Like there's so many different ways to go about these and to approach these different topics. I like the fact that you're inviting folks to think about some of the potentials before they actually come up, hopefully, because then they're kind of forearmed, aren't they?
They not only are they forearmed, but and I'll be honest with you, my kids have done some stuff that there was no way I could have foreseen it. Right? When you
Sure.
got 6 kids, type A dominant personalities to passive personalities to right yeah, everything under the spectrum
Sure.
of personalities. And so the key is when what would happen to me is I would let a frustration or a discouragement or whenever I felt my heat going up, or whatever, for me, it's heat. I feel the heat coming up like I'm getting frustrated. That is a trigger for me and a good trigger to say, okay, I need to sit down and write out my cost formula. I need to create a strategy. It only happens to me once, and the kids know it, right? They'll figure some stuff out to challenge me, and I'll be shocked by it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be shocked by that again. I'm going to go sit
Mm-hmm.
down and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
write it out and I'm going to figure some stuff out. And the next time it comes up, I'm going to be ready. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm ready. And they're like, oh, crap, that one didn't work anymore. I'll go back to the drawing board.
Exactly.
Right. And they do. Kids do that. They go back to the drawing
Yeah.
board. And we should expect that, which is why we should assume that
That
they
it's
are
going to
always
happen.
going to do that. Yeah. My wife has this analogy she used way back when. She said, kids are like velociraptors. And I said, what? And she said, the movie Jurassic Park, they have the velociraptors in this cage that has barbed wire around it and it's electrified. And they notice the velociraptors are testing the fences every 30 seconds, systematically, every part of the fence, because they're testing for weaknesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens in the movie? They have to turn off the electricity for 30 seconds. The velociraptors get out, they take over the line and kill everything. She said, kids are
Mm-hmm.
like velociraptors, and they're going to consistently test the fences. They're going to test us. They're going to test other people. They're going to find where things work. And that's where they're going to
Mm-hmm.
focus, right? They're going to say, oh, I see what works. Now, it's not because they're bad. It's because
Mm-mm.
they're kids. They're figuring
It's,
out the
yeah.
world. They're figuring out how the world works, how they want it to work, how they can manipulate their world, how they right and they learn from those experiences. So it's not kids aren't bad. They're just testing constantly and
Mm-hmm.
we give them feedback. Now, we're teaching
Right.
them what works. I had a family come to
Yep.
me and say, "Our kids won't stop whining." I said, "Well, that's because it works." And they said, "What?"
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
bet they didn't like that much, but I bet it was true.
let's get out the cost formula, right? The challenge was whining, right? And they created a
Mm-hmm.
series of steps, their tactics, and mom and dad
Mm-hmm.
together. Every time a kid would whine, there was 4 steps they would take. And guess what happened? The kids quit whining because it quit working. Now, they
Mm-hmm.
went to other stuff, but guess what? The
Mm-hmm.
parents could adjust and they could say, okay, the whining's gone. Now they're doing this, right? But we can
Exactly.
address that
Yeah.
one. Yeah. So
Awesome. All right. I know that I've learned some things. I like the APWEC and the cost analogy or acronyms rather that they're easy to remember. They're easy to implement. So we are going to close out this portion of our conversation that is being distributed to all the places that you can find Parent Tween Connection. And Kyle and I are actually going to continue our conversation with Parent Tween Village. If you're not yet part of Parent Tween Village, check it out. It's our family-facing community. We bring in folks like Kyle. We give you exclusive insight from them. And then we also have monthly community calls just for members of the village. So you can learn more at our website at www.parenttweenconnection.com. Kyle, thank you so very much for your time, and I will see you shortly.
okay.